Hi everyone, I've recently finally finished playing Tales of Destiny 2, and I wanted to make this one a little different. Since this game is the only one in the series without an English translation patch as of recording, I decided that before I make my usual review, I would make a story summary video covering the main story beats, since this is probably the game people are least familiar with. Obviously, spoilers for the entire game here and also for the original Tales of Destiny, and yet again, this video is not a review. That will come later, hopefully sooner than usual. I won't be covering any side quests or anything like that, so without further ado, let's get into it. The game begins with a flashback to the finale of the original Destiny, showing the four Swordian masters destroying the Eye of Adamoni and sacrificing the Swordians. 18 years later, we find Kyle Dunamis, the son of Stan and Rutee, playing with some orphan children when they're attacked by monsters. Kyle tries to hold them back, but eventually Lonnie Dunamis, his adopted brother, shows up and saves the group. After the fight, Kyle collapses and Lonnie carries him back to Cresta. Lonnie acts as a soldier for a religious organisation called the Order of Adamoni, but is returned to Cresta for several reasons, but mainly to go with the Order to find a giant lens worth 3 million gold, which he tells Kyle about, and Kyle gets far too excited, and Lonnie agrees to bring Kyle with him as long as Rutee agrees. Later that day, Lonnie tells Rutee that the Order of Adamoni only seems to care about those who have lens, and that ever since a woman named Elraine appeared, everything has changed. I'm sure she won't be important. Kyle quickly changes the subject to the Laguna ruins, saying at his age, Rutee was already a lens hunter, and Stan's blood runs in his veins, so he needs to go on an adventure. Rutee says no, absolutely not, and shuts the conversation down, but Kyle says he will absolutely be going to the ruins no matter what, then goes to bed. That night, Kyle has a dream of someone trying to attack his parents when he was young, or was it a lost memory? Kyle jumps awake, with Rutee surprised that he woke up by himself since he's usually just like his father in that way. Kyle falls back asleep almost immediately, and Rutee resorts to secret technique, raise the dead, let its old reliable. Lonnie decides to bring Kyle to the ruins anyway, and they head straight there. As they arrive, a group from the Order arrives behind them, so Kyle and Lonnie decide to go through the back door. After accidentally activating an ancient device and facing a machine from the war between heaven and earth, Kyle and Lonnie stumble across a giant lens, found inside the branches of a giant tree. Kyle touches the lens and somehow it breaks apart, and in the energy it leaves behind, a mysterious girl appears. The girl says she is looking for a hero, perhaps one of legend, or one that could change the course of history. Kyle, being how he is, excitedly exclaims that he may not be a hero right now, but someday he will be one, since he is his father's son. The girl, completely emotionless, tells him he is not the hero she's looking for, and isn't even a hero at all. Having not even ruined Kyle's day, she leaves. Unfortunately, the Order catches up to them here, and the pair are thrown into Darrell-Sheet prison. Lonnie seems to understand the severity of the situation, but Kyle is just excited that his adventure has now begun, and says when they get back to Cresta, he's going to go on a trip to prove to that girl that he is a hero, and Lonnie decides to come too, since he has absolutely lost his job after that whole debacle. A mysterious and not at all familiar voice laughs at the pair and their naivete, saying that becoming a hero is something that the people decide, not just something you can become just because you want to. When he finds out that the party knows 2 of the 4 legendary heroes, he relents slightly and offers to help the party escape the dungeons. Also, yes, they only mention the Swordian masters of heroes of the first game here. Although the other party members are recognised, they're not really as important, unfortunately. Anyway, Kyle asks the masked stranger his name, to which he responds that that's meaningless to him. Kyle decides to call him Judas, which, oh, okay, right, kind of weird, but okay. The prison is actually the former mansion of Hugo Oberon, which was turned into a temple after the incidents of the past. So the secret passages beneath them lead the party to the sewers, which then lead the party outside the city. Kyle earnestly thanks Judas, who tries to ask to go with them back to Cresta but hesitates, instead leaving Kyle with the advice that if he wants to be a hero, he should work his absolute hardest. Loney doesn't trust him at all, but Kyle can tell that deep down he's a good person. When Kyle returns home, Rutee is rightfully furious at him, although the slap may be too much. She tells him she was so worried and doesn't want to talk about it, but Kyle perseveres, and after he goes to bed, Rutee laments how she hasn't noticed his resolve, and strengthens herself for the next day. Tomorrow, Kyle wakes to find Rutee in a good mood, and she gives him Stan's old armour, as well as money donated from an anonymous donor who has strangely similar handwriting to Kyle. She says providing for their children is what makes parents happy, and then mentions Stan. And Kyle says he remembers that he went on a trip over 10 years ago, so he doesn't really remember much about him. And at that, Rutee sends him and Lonnie on their way. I'm sure Stan will come back soon. The pair leave Cresta and decide to head for the holy city Aigret, since they assume the mystery girl will be looking for the 4 legendary heroes. And since they just left Rutee and don't know where Stan is, that leaves both Filia and Woodrow, so they're headed for Filia. On the way, they pass through Harmen's Valley, but the bridge has collapsed. This random merchant tells the party that the girl already passed through, and that she jumped down the cliff sides to get across, so the pair follows. Halfway down, they find her pendant, and then they find the girl crying over having lost said pendant. She takes it from them and thanks them. Kyle says that's what a hero should do, and she tells him, yet again, that he is not her hero, says not to follow her, and then leaves. Kyle obviously immediately follows her. The pair arrive in the holy city Aigret, the home of the Order of Adamoni and location of the Great Strelized Temple. Shortly after arriving, the Supreme Elraine arrives, the lady who is head of the Order and apparently has the power to grant miracles. She works her magic on the crowd, making a child walk again and curing a man's IBS, before Loney realizes that she has a similar pendant to the mysterious girl from before. Kyle assumes the worst and rushes towards Elraine, demanding she return the pendant. Elraine is startled, but becomes intrigued when she hears of another pendant like her own. Since she hadn't actually stolen it, she just had a really similar one, which is completely reasonable to assume. The party introduces themselves to her and apologise, to which Elraine says she would love to meet them again, especially their friend with the similar pendant. As she leaves, Kyle mentions that she looks very similar to the mysterious girl. That was such a nice interaction. Elraine is so kind. The innkeeper mentions that he saw their friend go towards the great temple, but the guards won't let the party follow her in, so Kyle and Loney decide to use the old ruins to find another way inside. After going through the ruins and doing a puzzle which has seemingly nothing to do with the rest of the area, they arrive in the Great Strelized Temple to find the girl speaking to Filia, who wants to know why she wants to find a hero, and she replies, to get a power to change the world, not just people, but fate itself. She refuses to elaborate on why, even when Filia tells her she has her own great power. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears in the room and attacks Filia, seemingly the same man from Kyle's dream. Kyle and Loney rush in and fight him to protect Filia, and after the fight, the man tries to kill Kyle, but Judas appears in time to save him. The man reveals himself as Barbatos Goetia, and says he will remember Kyle before disappearing the same way he appeared. After getting Filia patched up in a safe place, the mysterious girl laments that she couldn't do anything to help, and Kyle tries to cheer her up by saying she should do what she can with no regrets. Filia wakes up and shares her story of 18 years ago, when Stan and the party helped her overcome her regret and move on to help in the fight. She tells the girl that she can't help her find a hero, but that she needs friends, people that will believe in her, and help her believe in herself and them. Kyle jumps at the opportunity, and she hesitates slightly, before sheepishly introducing herself as Reala. Thank God there's only so many times you can say mystery girl before it sounds weird. As the group leaves to chase Judas, Filia lets Reala feel her heartbeat, showing her the life she protected and the power she possesses. And it's only after they leave that Filia realizes that Kyle is the son of Stan and Rutee. You would think the constant mention of To-san and Ka-san would help, but apparently not. Outside the temple, Kyle pesters Judas about why he helped and invites him to the party, since he's been looking out for them from afar and it will be easier to watch them from up close. Judas protests until some guards arrive looking for a suspicious person, and the party covers for Judas in a funny scene. Poor Judas got a tummy ache from the hike. Eventually he relents, saying that scenes like that will happen again, asking if they're okay with that. They agree and decide to head towards Heidelberg, where the final hero, Woodrow, rules over the Kingdom of Snow. At Egret Port, the party boards a boat to Snowfreer, and the party splits up, with Reala and Kyle going to the boat's highest point to look out over the ocean. Reala finally opens up, since she's not just thinking about finding a hero anymore, and teases Kyle, laughing and joking with him. Reala asks why Kyle wants to be a hero, and he says it's to be more like his father Stan. Even though he doesn't remember him well, he wants to be strong like he was. Before Reala can share her reasons for wanting a hero, the boat is attacked by the Lord of Devil's Reef, Fornius. Kyle falls 3 stories and breaks his skull, but he's fine, and the party goes to fight the creature. The party defeats its tentacles, only to discover its real body is already inside the hull, doing critical damage to the ship. Lonnie and Kyle start to evacuate the passengers onto the ship's deck, and Judas asks Reala to use her power to save them, to which she says she can't. Once on the deck, Judas once again urges Reala to use her power, to which she hesitates a little and then starts to unleash a bright light. It's weak at first and can't do much, but with Kyle's support she manages to make the ship fly across the ocean, making it to safety. Reala collapses soon after, and the ship captain offers to drop the party at Lean since they can't travel to Heidelberg just yet, and the ship will dock at Neustadt for repairs. The party heads straight for Kyle's aunt's house, Lilith Aileron, sister of Stan. Kyle asks her about his father's childhood, and Lilith tells him he was a normal, sleepy child with dreams of becoming a palace guard who suddenly found himself saving the world. After asking around the village, Kyle realizes his father was very like him and then stayed a night. Deep in the dark of night, Kyle wakes and tells Lonnie he's happy that Stan was just like him, and Lonnie tells him Stan was a hero because of his strong soul, especially his willingness to trust his comrades. Lonnie owes Stan a lot and says some strange things about how if Lonnie didn't exist then Stan would have... He stops and urges Kyle to go to sleep. The next day, Kyle struggles to wake, so Lilith has to pull out her secret technique yet again. He finds Reala outside, tells her she looks a lot better, and then yaps at her for ages, telling her just about how the ship captain called them heroes and saints just like Elraine. Reala's mood seems to drop at the mention of Elraine and saints, but Kyle continues and mentions her pendant and its powers. Reala says she couldn't use that power again even if she wanted to, and Kyle uses his father's quote to encourage her. Believe in yourself and your companions. If you do, then everything will be fine. The party says goodbye to Lilith, getting some more of Stan's things, and heads towards Neustadt. After passing through the chain of white smoke, an area of endless fog caused by changes to the environment after the Aethersphere incident, the party rests in a hut and Judas keeps watch, mentioning that Kyle sleeps just like him, and talking about Chal, whatever that means. Lonnie awakes, saying that Judas mentioned Kyle, saying he won't forgive Judas if he hurts Kyle. Judas responds by asking how long Lonnie is going to play guardian to Kyle, and if he keeps it up then Kyle will never grow on his own. Lonnie gets angry, which wakes Reala, who asks what happened, and then Lonnie snaps back at her. Kyle has been sleeping this entire time and starts talking, saying he wants the 4 of them to stay together forever. This calms everyone down and Lonnie takes over to watch. After reaching Neustadt, the boat hasn't been repaired yet, so the party decides to kill some time when they're approached by an obviously evil merchant. The party meets him in the old villa in the north of town that Irene Rembrandt used to live in. He asks them to find a treasure from the Oberon Corporation that was hidden in the abandoned mines outside of town. Judas is suspicious and asks how he knows about the will this was written on, and the merchant starts to panic and says they don't know anything about Irene's will, a slip-up that reveals his sources. Kyle and Lonely stop Judas from pressuring the merchant, which is unfortunate, and they head to the mines. Going through the tunnels, Judas seems to know a bit too much about the inner workings here. At the end, the party finds some mineral ore that was used in the construction of Belgrand, and thankfully the world no longer has the technology to do anything with this anymore. Further in, a message has been left by Irene, telling of how the minerals here could be used to solve the economic inequality of Neustadt, and that this place should be left so that the mineral can always be used for good. The party laments that the events of the previous game were caused by her and the Oberon Corporation trying to achieve their ideals too quickly, but they do acknowledge that her intentions were still true. Probably, she did kill a lot of people. On return, the party overhears the merchant saying he wouldn't care if they died, and they give him the mineral, which doesn't seem to satisfy him whatsoever. He tries to cheat them out of payment, but Judas pushes him and he pays up. Thankfully, the boat is ready to go, so the party leaves. Kyle wanders around to find Lonely asking Judas his age, since he knows an awful lot about the events of 18 years ago, and Reala is wondering how he knows about her. Judas says he'll tell all if Reala tells them who exactly she is, which she refuses, so Judas declares he will be disappearing at the next port. Kyle catches up with him and says he doesn't care about his secrets. In fact, he likes him because he has secrets, and wants him to stay with them all. Judas mentions he wanted this time to be different, but still decides to keep on the mask in order to prevent everything from spilling out. The boat arrives in Snowfreer and everyone is a happy family again, thank God, although everyone is really cold since they're only all wearing one layer of thin clothing. Eventually, the party reaches Heidelberg and enters the castle, surprised that the king can't see a group of random visitors as soon as they arrive. Lonely tells the guards that Kyle is a son of Stan, who Woodrow will want to see, and Judas decides to leave for now. When they reach the throne room, Elraine is already there, asking Woodrow for his kingdom's lenses, to which he refuses, stating he is suspicious, especially since the recent disaster was caused by a religious leader with a large amount of lenses. She takes her leave and the party enters. Woodrow starts off by telling them off for skipping the queue, then saying that a son of Stan and Rutee is like his own son. Reala realizes that Woodrow is not her hero, and after hearing the situation, he mentions that those who never give up can be considered heroes, and compares Kyle to Stan several times before offering to show the party the lens that Elraine wanted, of which there are thousands behind the throne room, which are being kept in the castle in order to prevent those with bad intentions from misusing them. The group leaves the castle. Judas arrives and Kyle excitedly tells him what happened, and Judas informs him that not a single person in the castle, not even Woodrow, sees Kyle as his own person, simply a shadow of his parents, something the constant comparisons proves. Judas mentions that everyone else is dismayed that Woodrow isn't the hero Reala wants, while Kyle is happy, meaning he's at odds with his companions, something a hero should never do. Kyle runs away and Lonely gets upset, to which Judas says he is no better, as his speaking to the guards was what planted this seed in everyone's minds. Judas says he has said this even though he knew it would hurt, as it would help Kyle become a hero, and Reala runs after Kyle. After catching up, Kyle realizes he is being a bit of an idiot, and is glad Judas said those things. The pair goes on a walk to the nearby park and look out on the white landscape covered in forest and mountains. Reala sees it and feels a sense of anxiety, not seeing the path forward, while Kyle sees an endless landscape ready to explore and find something waiting for him. Reala admires his outlook and wishes she could feel the same, saying his constant happiness and spontaneity is what makes the party love him, and even goes as far as to say she wishes he could have been the hero she was looking for. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a dragon appears and destroys the castle's bell tower. Lonely and Judas arrive and they go through the back entrance, only to find monsters overrunning the castle. They fight this random guy Sabnok and arrive at the throne room, only to find Barbatos attacking Woodrow. He leaves after gloating and the party rushes to Woodrow's side, saying he'll be fine with medical treatment. Reala mentions this will upset the flow of time before realizing something, when suddenly Elraine appears. It's clear Reala and Elraine know each other, with Reala saying Elraine can't save people like this, and Elraine asking, what is she gonna do about it? After a futile attack against her, Elraine uses her powers to send the party away, very similar to what Reala did on the ship earlier. Kyle and Reala wake up outside Aigret. Lodi and Judas nowhere to be seen, and after entering, it's obvious something is different, and Reala reveals that they've been sent 10 years into the future. There's a statue to the living goddess Fortuna that wasn't there before. The people are acting really weird, and the pair watch a ceremony of birth, where a baby is born via the goddess's power, with no effort from the mother, and the baby is named a bunch of letters and numbers, then taken away from their parents for 3 years. Kyle is horrified at this sight, when a lady comes in and is surprised to see people that think like her. The woman says having a baby should be a big responsibility, and Kyle agrees. Reala starts to say in this way things will be easier and people will be happier, and Kyle starts to argue back when the woman says she knows of them since Loli and Judas appeared in her village. They decide to go back together, and she introduces herself as Natalie Fletch, and they head towards Hopetown in Calvaless. The sailor on the way to Cherrick says that the Calvaless is not a place blessed by the goddess, but Natalie seems to be used to words like that. On the ship, Reala reveals that she is indeed from the future, but refuses to say any more. Natalie, however, calls her the Second Saint, and Reala panics and tells her not to tell Kyle. Seems Reala has more secrets than she is willing to share. On the way to Hopetown, the Heat River has overflowed, so the party has to go around, and while unblocking the river, Natalie reveals she looks after all of the children of Hopetown. At the town itself, the children are excited for Natalie to return with gifts, while Loni and Judas are playing with the kids, or rather trying to play and being criticised instead. Natalie's younger brother, Lou, died several years ago from a disease that could only be cured by swearing devotion to Fortuna, something she didn't want to ever do, so Lou passed away. But in his final days, he was happy, so Natalie has no regrets. Reala seems very confused and conflicted by everyone's rejection of the goddess's ways. At dinner, Reala says that she can bring everyone back to the present, but she'll need the power of a large number of lens. Natalie has heard rumour of a large lens at the temple in Calviola, so the party heads there via Trash Mountain, which has certainly seen better days. At the temple, services have just finished, so the party sneaks in and finds a massive lens. Unfortunately, the goddess is also here. She asks Reala if she was going against the path Elraine has gone down, as her second saint. Kyle and the others are obviously shocked at this revelation, and Fortuna explains that she gave life to them in order to find a path to salvation for humans. She doesn't seem to care about Elraine's methods as long as people find happiness, and Reala has a slight breakdown, saying Elraine's methods are wrong, but she has power, while Reala does not. Kyle tries to encourage her, and Reala screams that he doesn't understand the weight of her responsibilities, and when he continues to naively say that he does, Reala says he can't understand because he isn't a saint, and he certainly isn't a hero. Fortuna then sends them back in time and says they'll meet again. After waking up, the party finds themselves back in Heidelberg in present day. Kyle and Reala aren't speaking, and Natalie is here as well, although she's decided to stay and help the party fight Elraine, even though that was never really discussed before. In the throne room, Woodrow is still hurt but won't die, and the party finds that the lens have completely disappeared from the vault. Judas surmises that Elraine wants the lens in order to facilitate the descent of Fortuna, which apparently happened in this time period. Woodrow is saddened to learn of the robbery, but wants to speak the next day, so the party rests in the castle. Loni makes a thoughtless comment about having nothing but trouble since meeting Reala, and later, Natalie meets Reala in the park outside. Reala has been feeling troubled due to both the impending descent of Fortuna and also how she hurt Kyle earlier. Natalie says she used to fight with Lou a lot, and we fight with people because we care. We do it in order to understand each other and eventually agree. The next morning, Reala is missing, and a soldier saw her leave the castle the night before, disappearing in a pillar of light. The party decides she must have gone to Aigret to confront Elraine, but Kyle hesitates. Judas notices that he's afraid of being rejected, and says that he felt the same once before, and he lost his friends and the one he loved, so he tells Kyle his dreams are just ahead. Kyle knows he isn't the hero Reala wants, but that won't stop him from being the hero that she needs right now. Woodrow stops them, saying this might cause an all-out war due to being a conflict between Heidelberg and the Order of Autonomy, and asks if Kyle is ready to bear the responsibility. Kyle disagrees, saying someone who can't even save a single person isn't qualified to call themselves a hero. Woodrow reveals this was just a test of resolve and gives them a letter marking them as official heads of the lens retrieval operation. As they leave, Woodrow sees his new resolve and decides to stop calling him Stan's son, as Kyle is now his own person. The party heads to the abandoned military base, as there is a flying machine left over from the war between heaven and earth still there. After breaking some ancient seals, the party comes across the ancient Ixie Fossiler, a flying machine made by Dr. Harold Berzelius, the same person who made the Swordians, who I'm sure is a well put together person and totally normal. Anyway, the party flies to the Great Strelized Temple where Reala has been captured by Elraine. Elraine is getting ready to summon the goddess in order to remove pain and suffering from the people, but Reala says she will also be taking away all happiness and joy. Elraine can tell Reala wants someone to come and save her, and Reala thinks Kyle won't come because he has no reason to, and just as the summoning is about to happen, the party arrives to fight Elraine. After beating her with great difficulty, she retreats, and Kyle runs to Reala, who asks why they came for her. Kyle replies that he is her hero, and heroes always save those in trouble. Reala cries, saying she isn't sad, when her pendant starts to glow, proving Kyle was her hero this whole time. As the party leaves, Philia arrives having literally no idea what's going on, wondering where her lens have gone. Elraine has taken them on her flying dragon, and Philia gives the party some invisibility goggles as they leave. Okay. The Ixie Fossiler is used to crash into the flying dragon, where the party decides the best course of action is to crash it into the ocean. After fighting through the puzzles and contraptions, Reala tells Gap that since Kyle is her hero, she'll always follow him no matter the consequences, and they fight Gap's beast to destroy the dragon's controls and escape. Unfortunately, as the dragon crashes, it causes a large burst of energy, which the party attempts to escape from, and Reala has to use her power to send them all somewhere safe. After waking up in this random beach cave, the party realizes the dragon was a decoy, and they emerge to find that Belkrant and Dycroft are in the sky, sending some sort of light energy to the land below. The party assumes they've gone to the past, but Reala says she didn't perform any kind of time travel, meaning that they still must be in the present. Judas decides the only logical conclusion must be that Elraine has somehow changed the events of the past to change the outcome of the war between heaven and earth, meaning Dycroft still exists in this timeline. The party heads towards the nearest town, noticing there are very little signs of life around, except for the monsters. The party arrives at a domed city called Gospel. Here a man explains that the outside air is dirty, and the lens on their foreheads helps protect them from it, and all of this was given to them by the great Elraine. He urges the party to seek advice from the Holy Order of Fortuna, who will help them with all they need. After looking around, Judas mentions that it has been at least 100 years since this city was built, meaning that Elraine has changed history from quite a while before the party's time. They decide to head elsewhere, and after passing through a dense jungle, they arrive at the second domed city, Scarlet Hope, and note how all of the people are finding artificial happiness in an artificial city. They find a world map and discover that this is definitely the world they know, but the town names are different. Judas seems to suddenly realise that the cities are named what they were during the war between heaven and earth, as after the war in the original timeline, the destroyed cities were renamed as they were rebuilt. I wonder who told him that. They then decide to head towards the city in the same spot that they know Heidelberg to be, Rialta, or reality. This domed city feels similar to the last two, and the party laments this, saying that everyone should have individual happiness, not made to feel everything exactly the same, although Reala is continuing to be really weird about everything. They ask a woman inside the main building if she knows the hero Woodrow, to which she replies the only hero she knows is Barbatos, the hero that saved the world during the war between heaven and earth alongside Elraine. The party is obviously confused by this and seeks out the library that no one here has used for years, since they're so happy they have no need to seek out their history. The library takes the form of a projector, which shows the changed events of the war. Here we learn that in this timeline, the forces of heaven won the war, with Elraine appearing to save the residents of the desolate earth, giving them lens in order to harness the goddess's power. This knowledge infuriates the party, who figure out this means the world as they know it is long gone. However, Reala asks if this world is truly wrong, since everyone is happy, she and Kyle could live together here in peace. To which Kyle replies, "Absolutely not. I don't know anybody here and all of my loved ones have disappeared." Judas agrees and Reala relents. The plan becomes travelling back to the war times and setting things right, but they'll need a large amount of lens to do so. Outside, Elraine is using the power of Dicroft to infuse power in the lens of the people, and the party decides to travel to Dicroft in order to use that lens power for themselves. Elraine herself opens the path to Dicroft for the party at the Temple of Light, and after beating up Dantalion, they enter and find Elraine. She says she wanted to create a world without despair or suffering, and that this is only a transition period. Soon she will descend the goddess and form a perfect world. She was trying to do so in the previous present, but non-believers were making it difficult, so she decided to start collecting lens, which was obviously stopped by the party. Her only course of action then was to travel far into the past and change the world to make everyone a follower of the goddess. The party argues back, but Elraine interjects, revealing Judas's true identity as Leon Magnus, the infamous traitor of the Swordian team. Elraine resurrected him to help her with her plan, but he refused, and the party is in shock, with Kyle especially denying the possibility. Elraine takes this chance to attack the party. Reala wakes up to find Elraine has trapped the others in an eternal dream, since she believes this will give eternal happiness in a perfect reality. Elraine believes humans are weak and need a goddess to lead them, while Reala believes in humans and says that Kyle believes happiness is in the journey and not just the destination, so she agrees and jumps into the dream in order to save them. She arrives in Cresta and finds baby Kyle, who has lost his memories. Reala manages to make him wake up, restoring him to his real state, and Lonnie is also there somehow. They both realise it was a dream, when suddenly they see Barbatos attacking their child selves, which is a memory of their past, meaning they can't communicate with their past selves. Stan and Rutee appear to save their children, but Barbatos attacks both of them before disappearing. Rutee has been injured, but unfortunately Stan has been killed, and Rutee and Lonnie chose to tell Kyle he had left on a journey in order not to upset him. Lonnie feels so guilty that he thinks it was his fault Stan died, but Kyle forgives him, and they move on to the next dream. The trio ends up in Hope Town, and Natalie is happy. Turns out her brother Lou is still alive here, and Lonnie forces Natalie over to the gravesite, an area Lou doesn't like. Lonnie and Lou argue with Natalie over Lou's life, with Natalie finally reading the name on the grave and emotionally accepting that Lou has died, saying she was sorry he is gone, and lets her emotions out with Lonnie's help as Lou fades away, and the party enter the final dream. They find themselves in a cave, witnessing the final moments of Leon Magnus, when he fought the other Swordian masters. Elraine saves his life and taunts him, saying he can become a hero, but Judas says he was prepared for this in order to save Marion, and will endure any curse. He rejects the name Leon and announces himself as Judas, just as the party arrives. Kyle says he has always believed in Judas and always will, and they finally leave the dream. The party have a back and forth with Elraine, with her spouting the work of the goddess, but the party says true happiness is what matters and not her fake contentment, and then they travel back into the past, back to the war between heaven and earth. They arrive in the Heidelberg military base 1,000 years in the past, back when it was still in use, and they decide to go gather information when they run across a runaway robot with an eccentric lady chasing it, who then asks the party to destroy the robot when she tries and fails to control it. After some confusion, she decides that the party is from the future, which was a guess, but also she noticed a distortion in space-time, and the women's style doesn't make sense due to chaos theory, which is weird. They have a funny back and forth when they ask her to find Dr. Harold Berzelius, and she reveals herself as Harold by listing off a lot of details about Shaltier, who Judas has had with him this entire time. Harold says they chose a male name because they thought it would be funny, and they're right, and then they agree to take the party to see their superiors and the other main members of the Earth Soldier Forces, so they head to the Radisral. Inside, Deimos, Shaltier, Igtanos, Ritora and Harold's brother Carol are discussing plans. Harold announces that the rest of the party are now part of the army and are her direct underlings, to which Deimos protests, but Ritora okays it since he knows there's nothing they can do to stop Harold. Deimos explains the plan is to save a team of engineers sent to Belkrant, including Adwite and Clemente. The party heads to the old material storage facility to the east, where after a convoluted puzzle and a recap of the reasons behind the war between Heaven and Earth, Harold finds some things she'll use to build a rocket to help them all reach Dicroft. Back at base, Harold leaves the rest of the party to report to Ritora, and in the Radisral they find Deimos being really anxious to start the operation, while Ritora tells him to calm down and Karel is apprehensive about rushing things. Turns out everybody likes Deimos though, so it's okay. Kyle is really excited to fight along the Sordian team, and after the party leaves him alone, Reala tells him she's serious about him being her hero, and he'll be able to fulfill her wishes. Weird. The next morning, Ritora explains that our party has the job of distracting the enemies while Sordian team saves the hostages. The party successfully gets to Dicroft, and after a single fight, Harold asks the party if they've fought any of these enemies before. She then reveals that these creatures are far more advanced than any she has come across, meaning that they most likely travelled back in time from the future. Harold learns about Elraine changing history and trying to summon the goddess, and she gets really overexcited about it all, but still doesn't want to learn anything else about the future. A little bit through the dungeon, the party meets back up with Deimos and saves the hostages. Their new goal is to go to the control room and ruin stuff, and after about 5 minutes of battles, Harold shuts down everything bar the escape shuttles, and after heading back, Barbatos appears. He's after Kyle, but Deimos recognizes him as a traitorous soldier that he killed with his own hands, and after a quick fight, Barbatos gains the upper hand and kidnaps Adwite, but Deimos chooses not to chase after them, instead heading back to minimize casualties. Kyle and Deimos argue about Adwite, since Deimos doesn't want to save her and push towards the final battle. Then Kyle calls him a coward, and not the hero Kyle always thought he was. Harold explains that Deimos has the weight of every soldier's life on his shoulders, and so he made that hard decision, and then jumps straight into wanting to go back to her research lab. Harold also reveals that Deimos and Adwite were lovers before going into the lab, saying that she told the party as a catalyst. Back at the Radisral yet again, the party confronts Deimos, again, and he still isn't interested. Suddenly, a soldier appears and says that they have a letter saying, "I'll wait at Spiral Cave," sent with Adwite's bracelet, an obvious trap. Kyle is annoyed that Deimos still won't do anything and goes to save her himself, quitting the army in the process. Reala tells Deimos Kyle is so passionate since he knows the pain of losing a loved one, and the party heads to the Spiral Cave. In the cave itself, Adwite is being held at its lowest point, and Barbatos manages to trap the party in a magical barrier, but thankfully Deimos arrives, new Sordian in hand, forcing Barbatos to retreat. After meeting, Adwite slaps Deimos and shouts at him for endangering himself and his soldiers to save one single person. But as an individual, she's really glad he came. Reala asks Kyle if it came to him choosing between her and something important, what would he choose? And when he says, "Obviously you, Reala," she seems disappointed. Back at the Radisral, Deimos is disciplined for acting without orders, and ordered to be on the front lines for the next fight, which is exactly where he would have been anyway. After this, finally, the Sordians have been completed, with Karel possessing the 6th Sordian possessed by Mictran in the previous game. Ritora is happy to learn of their completion and announces that the plan will go into action the next day. The party is ready for the big final battle, when Judas reminds everyone that Karel is destined to die in this fight, which depresses everyone, especially Kyle, who wants to know how they can save him, but he is reminded that that would also change history, just like what Elraine is doing. Yet again, the party is asked to distract the enemy while the Swordian team defeat Mictran, and the Radisral ascends to Dycroft. The Swordian team shows off their new magic, then Deimlos implies he knows the party is from the future before moving on. Kyle stupidly tries to tell Harold to go with them, much to Judas's annoyance, but Harold refuses to listen, saying she doesn't wish to know of the future and will only do what she can do now, without cheating. Further in, the party finds Barbatos, who says he doesn't care about changing history anymore, he simply wants to defeat Kyle, but Harold teases him, saying he can't even be a good villain since he doesn't want to change the end of the story. Barbatos then tells Harold that Karel will die fighting Mictran unless she helps, and then attacks. After being defeated yet again, he retreats to the Dycroft of 18 years before the present day, the day of the finale of the fight of Stan and Mictran. Harold then stops Belcrown from firing, still saying she won't change the future and will only do what she can. The party arrives in the throne room just in time to see Karel deal the finishing blow to Mictran, which deals mortal damage to him in the process. Harold holds him in her arms as he utters his final words. Back in the military base, Rutee leads a speech declaring the end of the war, while also remembering those they had lost. Kyle asks if they did the right thing, whether they could have saved Karel, but Harold calls him an idiot, that people from the future shouldn't change the events of the past simply for their own comfort, and says she's sure Karel didn't have any regrets. Harold suggests using the Swordians as a power for time travel, and they travel forward in time to the Aether Sphere. After passing through possibly the second worst world map of all time, the party arrives at Dycroft to see the 4 legendary heroes facing Barbatos and jump in to help. After saving them, Stan says if he has a child, he would name them Kyle Dunamis, and they move on. Lonnie and Kyle feel happy that they could save their father in a way, and they move towards the Eye of the Goddess on a different route than the 4 heroes. In the throne room, the party arrives just as the 4 heroes sacrifice their Swordians to destroy the Eye, but nothing happens. Deimlos recognizes Kyle from 1,000 years prior, saying that there is a way to destroy the Eye, but it's an impossibility, when Shaltier speaks up for the first time. Unfortunately, Barbatos shows up at this moment for a final battle. After a grueling fight, Barbatos loses what is left of his mind, saying no one can defeat him, and jumps on the Eye, choosing to die by his own hand, and disintegrates. Judas now chooses to sacrifice Shaltier, and after a touching scene, they destroy the Eye, and Dycroft and Belcrown with it. The party then finds themselves back in Heidelberg in the present time, with everything back to normal. King Woodrow congratulates the party for saving Reala like 10 hours ago, and he has already heard about the lens sinking with the flying dragon, but he doesn't really care and offers to let the party stay that night. In the morning, Reala wakes Kyle up with the allure of a date, and they head to the park. They speak about their journey so far, and Reala asks what Kyle would do if she was a worm, what he would do if she suddenly disappeared. Kyle says she shouldn't say that, and he would do anything to get her back. Suddenly the fabric of the world starts to shift, and Lonnie comes to tell the pair that Harold has news. Back in their room, Harold says she's found a disturbance in time flow 10 years in the future, something that might destroy the past and future, which explains what Reala saw outside, which was the present and future overlapping. Harold mentions that the Ixie Fossler should have enough lens power for time travel, and should have returned to the military base by itself, which it did. Reala also makes Kyle promise that he will do everything in his power to defeat Elraine, no matter what, which isn't suspicious at all. The party finds themselves in the Great Strelized Temple in the future, and some guards say they can't tell anyone where Elraine is, and then immediately give in to pressure and reveal she's in Calviola. After going beneath the temple and passing through the most evil catacombs ever, Gap attacks the party and is swiftly beaten. Elraine is also here, and she reveals her plan with the help of Harold's brain. 1,000 years ago, a large meteor hit the planet, and this meteor was, in fact, a giant lens that caused so much destruction it wiped out a majority of life on the planet, causing an ice age and sparking the war between heaven and earth. Elraine wants to repeat this, destroying humanity to save them, using a huge lens known as the Egg of the Goddess, and the energy produced by the collision will be enough to completely summon the goddess Fortuna. Kyle asks what humans are to Fortuna, and Elraine says they are nothing, insignificant, but Kyle says humans are strong. Elraine says she will create a new and improved human race who will experience absolute joy and happiness. Elraine cannot be defeated here, as she will always be reborn via the goddess, so Kyle says they will kill the goddess, and Elraine reveals the truth. Elraine and Reala are figments of the goddess, two saints born to achieve absolute happiness, and if the goddess is defeated, then both of them will also disappear. Elraine leaves, knowing the party cannot defeat her in their current state, and Kyle falls into despair, so they all leave. Everyone is slightly deflated back in the military base, and Judas tells Kyle that they have to do something, or the egg of the goddess will destroy the world, and Kyle must decide what to do since he is Reala's hero. This sparks an idea, and Kyle decides to consult the remaining great heroes in order to decide what to do in this impossible situation. First is Woodrow, who relates the situation to being a king. He uses an example of a small village and a large city on a river. The village uses the water for farming, and the city is running out of drinking water. The king must decide between two impossible choices since this is life or death, and Woodrow says he would think. He would think until he came up with a solution, and then stick with his answer until everything was finished, since that is the responsibility of those who must decide. Philia relates it to her experience with Stan and everyone else, particularly their decision to fight Leon when he betrayed them. It hurt a lot, but she has no regrets, since it was a decision she made herself, something Stan helped her learn. Finally, Rutee. Rutee learns that Kyle knows the truth about Stan's death, and tells him she can't help him find his answers, since the only thing that can find it is his own heart. It will be painful, and he may not like it, but he has to choose, not because he is Reala's hero, but because he loves her and she loves him. Outside, Harold mentions they can't leave yet since she has to make some adjustments to the Ixie fossiler, so Reala brings Kyle back to Laguna Ruins, back in the room where they first met. Reala is happy to see that the place looks the same, even though it feels so long ago, but also so soon at the same time. Kyle gets frustrated at Reala's optimism in the face of death, and decides he doesn't want to make this decision and no longer wants to be a hero. Reala gets angry and says she's in front of him now since he's the only one who can make this decision. Her death may make him suffer, but she believes in him because she loves him. She says if the goddess is destroyed, then she won't exist in space-time anymore, but she's not afraid since they're doing what they believe is right on the way to real happiness. She's chosen to follow him and doesn't regret her actions and won't give up as long as she's with Kyle. Kyle and Reala make a promise over her pendant that they will one day meet again, and their belief in that miracle causes the pendant to fly away. The next day, the egg of the goddess has appeared in the sky above Calvalace. Kyle has decided that they will defeat the goddess, and the rest of the party is right behind him. After passing through some embarrassingly difficult puzzles and breaking the seals on the egg's inner layers, the party catches up to Elraine in the depths of the egg's core. Elraine asks if they understand who they are about to kill, and Kyle says they're ready for the worst. Reala explains that she now knows that humanity does not need to be saved, and humans will one day be able to reach true happiness by themselves, even with pain and suffering. Elraine is confused, calling humanity weak and helpless, needing to be protected by the goddess, and after each party member lays out the themes and moral lessons of the game in turn, Elraine attacks, saying she will deliver the party to the goddess herself and save them. After a tough battle, Elraine fades from existence. From her lingering power, the goddess Fortuna appears, telling Reala that Elraine has failed, asking what Reala will do. Reala replies that Fortuna should do nothing, since humans carry happiness and can find it through pain and belief, and true happiness is not something that can be granted by any divine being. Fortuna is shocked, saying Reala is denying her reason for being, to which Reala replies her real reason for existing was to meet Kyle, her hero. Together they suffered and found happiness, and now Kyle must fulfill his destiny as a hero, and make them both disappear. Fortuna is enraged that small beings like humans won't need a goddess and attacks. During the fight, in a rare piece of in-battle plot-relevant dialogue, Fortuna laments that the people's desires helped birth her, and now the humans themselves have turned on her, so she will help fulfill Elraine's desires and end this world, which will in turn lead to a new one. Kyle says they aren't failures since they're working so hard, and eventually the party defeats the goddess. Right after the fight, Kyle goes to destroy the giant lens housing the goddess. However, he hesitates, knowing it's for the best but unable to do it, and he asks Reala to stop him, say one word and he'll stop. Reala embraces him from behind, saying she isn't afraid of disappearing, but she is afraid of being reborn as the goddess, and urges Kyle to destroy her, saying that there's a chance she might be reborn. Kyle destroys the lens and collapses. Many voices ring around him, coming from the remains of the lens power. Then Fortuna says no one will take this pain from Kyle, and if only a goddess was here, but there isn't since he killed her. And Kyle shouts back that his pain and suffering are his, and a new future for him and the rest of the world starts here, and he shouts her away. Reala remains, but simply as a ghostly apparition, and is given just enough time to tell Kyle she believes in the future he'll build, and she's glad she met him, but she disappears before she can finish. Afterwards, the remaining party members are surrounded by energy, and Harold explains that the space-time continuum is repairing itself, setting the world back to the way it was before Elraine's meddling. Unfortunately, this will erase the memories of the party too, meaning this journey will never be remembered in any way. Kyle is adamant that their relationships won't be erased, their bond will persist, and Harold is the first to be brought to her own time. She thinks Kyle's thoughts aren't logical enough and is going back to starting some new experiments, knowing the future is in good hands. Next is Natalie, saying that they exist in the same time period, so there's a chance they'll meet again, so she won't say goodbye, only promise to meet again. Next, Judas. He doesn't know what will happen to him, since Judas should never have existed, only Leon Magnus, but he's prepared to disappear. He was happy, he tried his best, and he has no regrets. He thanks Kyle and Lonnie as he disappears. Lonnie is next, saying he tried to be Kyle's guardian after Stan's death, and he enjoyed his role until the day Kyle didn't need him like that anymore, since Kyle became a guardian to Reala, and Lonnie is proud of him. Last is Kyle, who thanks everyone, saying the new future starts now, but the bonds that hold them together won't disappear. Right, Reala? Back in Cresta, Kyle wonders what need a peaceful world like this would have for a hero, and he knows somehow someone out there is waiting for him. Kyle and a newly alive Stan are sparring, and Kyle wins his first match. Stan says this is his first step to becoming a hero, to which Kyle says being a hero isn't something you can decide, it's something that the people must bestow on you. That evening, Kyle is eating dinner with Rutee and Stan, and he asks them to let him go on a journey, very similar to the beginning of the game. Rutee refuses as before, but Stan allows it, as long as Kyle finds something irreplaceable. The next day, he and Lonnie leave on their trip, with no real destination in mind, and they find themselves drawn to the Laguna ruins. Kyle feels drawn to the deepest room of the ruins, feeling like he's been there before. Suddenly, Reala appears before him yet again. And that is Tales of Destiny 2. Now, bear in mind, this is just covering the main story. There's a lot of other things I haven't mentioned, like the arena stuff and an entire section on Aquaville that I personally haven't played. So if you're interested, then I would really recommend playing the game yourself. I'll link the English script I used in the description, and hopefully the English patch that Lumina Tales is working on will be released soon, so even more people can enjoy this game. Or just a remastered version, but I think just a few entries I'll get to first. My actual review of this game will be coming out at some stage, so if you're interested in that, please like and subscribe, leave a comment if you want, and I hope to see you next time.